I think if I were to pick one story out of all the great stories I've been able to see this year, it would actually be one from the tsunami. And I was visiting last fall a village in southern Thailand that was completely wiped out when the tsunami hit, and Habitat was working with that village to rebuild. And this was a village of Moken, or sea gypsies, and they're a group that's discriminated against in Thailand. And in this village there's a gentleman named Mr. Samwang Chiachan, and Mr. Chiachan's developmentally disabled, and the developmentally disabled are discriminated against even in discriminated against communities, if that makes sense. And Mr. Chiachan, before the tsunami, lived in about a 2-meter square shack that was about waist high, and probably worse than many of the pets in America live in. And his shack was washed away with everything else in that village. And when I visited the village elder told me that the process of rebuilding the community had actually made the community much more of a community than it had been before the storm. He said they hadn't been terribly close before tsunami had come through. The process of rebuilding had changed, which is always good to hear. But what was much more powerful to me is as a tangible evidence of that sense of change in the community, the village decided it wasn't acceptable for Mr. Chiachan to live that way anymore. And so they got together, and they didn't have any more land, so they built, as far as I know, the only 3-story watchtower in that little chunk of southern Thailand. And I had the privilege of dedicating that watchtower. And not only did they build a safe and decent home for Mr. Chiachan, they gave him the job of watchman for the village. So now he not only had a place to live, he actually had a place in his community for the first time in his life. And that, as much as anything I've seen, encapsulates what can happen if we get people working together to make change.